Hello friends, welcome back to Alaska. I am your Alaskan homegirl Terry, and if you are new here, welcome. Alright, I don't know about you, but I am kind of relieved that the Christmas holiday is over and we are about to march into a brand new year. I'm super excited about it. Can't wait to share with you all some of the great information I have lined up about Alaska. So as you know, or as you may not know, I am a lifelong Alaskan. I was raised here. I've lived in Anchorage for 40 years, I believe it is. Yeah. And so Alaska is home for me. My family moved up here by way of the military. My dad was in the Air Force. They left back in 2000 and I decided to stay. So part of my journey as of late has been sharing with you all my life in Alaska as well as information about Alaska. And if you look at some of my other videos, you know that I enjoy my life here for the most part and that I mostly have positive things to say about Alaska. What I want to try to do though is be a little bit more balanced in the information that I share with you all. Some of this will be from my perspective and some of the things I share will be based on information that is readily available. So today's video, I am going to get into some of the difficulties that come along with life in Alaska. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing is accidental deaths. So according to the Bureau of Vital Statistics, about 400 people pass away in an untimely manner due to accidental deaths. Alaska is ranked as one of the most dangerous states in the United States, and part of that lends itself to the fact that there are so many accidental deaths that occur here in Alaska. So you might be thinking that some of these accidental deaths probably happen because people stumble upon wildlife and they get mauled by a bear or something like that. And those types of things do happen, but there are other incidents that far outweigh deaths due to crossing paths with wildlife. So for example, falling out of boats. That's something that is not uncommon that happens here in Alaska. Another one is people going out, they're thinking that these lakes are frozen solid, but they end up coming across a weak area and they fall through the ice into a frozen lake. And then here's something else that happens. So when you're in Alaska, and again, it depends on what region you're in, but for the most part, if you're going to be out in extreme cold winter conditions, you have to make sure you're wearing the proper gear. There have been people that have passed away due to being outside in extremely cold temperatures and they were ill prepared. And so those are just some accidental deaths, to name a few. And those are some of the more dramatic types of situations that happen. But the most common types of accidental deaths are not as dramatic. So another thing that has caused people to pass away accidentally is deaths due to carbon monoxide poisoning. So people have been found dead in their homes because of maybe a clogged up heater or a malfunctioning chimney. Another form of accidental deaths is there are quite a few bush planes here in Alaska. So we have a lot of Alaska bush pilots, and you will hear every now and again about fatalities resulting from someone dying in a plane crash. So it doesn't happen that often, but again, that is another contributing factor. So if you're looking at what a lot, or I would say quite a few of the accidental deaths are happening due to car accidents, people that are out maybe four-wheeling or on their ATVs, snowmobile, those types of things account for more of the accidental deaths in Alaska than anything else. Oh, and then I can't forget, commercial fishermen have the most dangerous job, or I would have to say one of the most dangerous jobs here in Alaska. Your risk of injury or death are increases by 20% if you are in that profession. So when you're living in Alaska, you can expect to have to deal with some form of hardship, and depending on which city you're living in, more so than others. However, you just have to be You just have to do your best to use common sense, practice as many safety measures as you can, and just keep everything in perspective. All right, so there's something else that is sometimes referred to as winter sadness, also known as seasonal affective disorder, or also called SAD, which is something that people can experience while living here in Alaska. Another term for it, I think, is cabin fever. You can experience that during the long, dark winter months. And the thing with seasonal affective disorder, it's more than just feeling like you're down in the dumps. You know, at its most critical point, you can feel paralyzed. You can feel like you have absolutely no motivation. There's some anxiety that could come along with that. It can be a pretty serious condition. And again, because of where Alaska is situated, it's not just cold here in the winter, it's dark. You know, there are certain cities to where they have 24 hours of darkness during the winter time. And when you live in areas like this and you have the lack of daylight, it actually does have a physiological effect on you, which can affect your mood, but also can affect your behaviors. So there are healthy ways that you can combat seasonal affective disorder. There are antidepressants if you want to go that route, but then also being fit, getting out and getting some fresh air, working out at a gym, eating healthy. Those are some things that you can do to try and help combat seasonal affective disorder. But then there are some ways that people choose that are unhealthy to try and help cope with seasonal affective disorder. One of those could be overeating. Another may be indulging in excessive amounts of alcohol. I have a friend of mine, I have to call and check on her from time to time because in the winter, she will just go to work, eat, and then go to bed. And she'll go to bed as early as 7 p.m. and then she just sleeps the entire day away. And so then another unhealthy coping mechanism that people sometimes turn to is drug use. So you definitely want to try and explore more of the healthy options, but something that I wanted to mention is that there are some of the coping mechanisms that are quite dysfunctional, and people, they do that because they're trying to combat the seasonal affective disorder symptoms that they're having. And yeah, just one more point to touch on that. You know, in worst cases, there have been people that, because it's become so heavy and difficult to deal with, it has been a causation of suicide attempts or successful suicides. So that's something that has been recognized here that people deal with in Alaska. There are several resources available. If you're watching this video and you're experiencing that, I do have a couple videos, one called How to Beat the Winter Blues, and then I think I have another one called How to Beat the Winter Blues 2, and I list out resources that you can refer to if you need to get help. Okay, so last on the list is wildlife is not the only creatures that you may have to contend with. They're not the only things that can get violent here in Alaska. So Alaska can be a difficult place to live, right? You know, you have to deal with the climate. Then there's kind of the rustic lifestyle, the isolation that you may have to deal with. And then there's also like a mixed bag of individuals that kind of find themselves here in Alaska because they may be running from some of their problems or issues they were dealing with somewhere else. We get a lot of end of the road type people here in Alaska. According to FBI statistics, Alaska is ranked one of the most violent states in the United States. And that's interesting, right? Because Alaska has one of the highest incomes here, and then we also have the lowest poverty rates, and then there are far less people living here in Alaska, but for whatever reason we have a much higher rate of violence in Alaska. And I would say a lot of that, a fair amount of that, is directed towards women. All right, friends, so there you have it. I know as of late, some of these videos have probably been a little heavy, but don't worry, we'll pick it back up. We'll get back to the more positive side of Alaska. But again, like I said, I want to give you some balanced content and definitely some things to think about if you're considering moving to Alaska and even if you're considering a visit to Alaska. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Subscribe and share the video. Comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.